I would say they were pretty much for the most part reinforced. The stereotypical gender norms of like the man being the breadwinner, and the women like being the provider and caretaker of the home. It wasn't like necessarily framed as a negative thing, and I would like to preface by saying I personally don't think it's necessarily a negative thing to have like a traditional gender role if that's something that you want to do. I'm open to everybody just doing whatever the hell they want to do. I personally kind of like that sort of thing going on. It's not like a hard rule for me, but I would say in the church they more or less just kind of stuck to it and said like, yeah, you gotta man's got to take care of his wife, and then but the wife's got to take care of the husband. It's they framed it more as a partnership. Definitely, it wasn't like one like domineering over the other, but there it was definitely leaning more towards like a patriarchal household. But at least the pastor that we had, I felt he did like do his best to emphasize that like as much as like the man is supposed to be leading, like it's just as much his responsibility to make sure that the people in his household like feel looked after and all that. So I think it was a bit better than like the usual depiction. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, most of the ministries that were ran, or I believe that was the term for it, where they'll have like usually there'd be like a midway point between like the first and like second like session of it, because there'd be like an 8 to 12 and then like a 12 to 3, at or 8 to 11 and then a 12 to 3, and in that like 1 hour block there'd be like different ministries and like Bible classes and stuff like that, and almost all of them were led by women from what I remember. I think there were a few ministries that were like they had partnerships with like there would be a man and a woman teaching it, or sometimes just a man. But from what I remember, it was mostly women that led a lot of the ministries at that church that I went to. I think it definitely did during my formative years for sure. Because I identified very heavily with the church as a kid. I would say it was a big part of my identity, and I felt like I based a lot of, I mean, as a lot of children do, I based a lot of my beliefs around what the adults in the church were telling me about. We never had like super deep conversations or anything, but I kind of just like emulated what I saw, which was just like the stereotypical like man leading the relationship type stuff, and the women being caregivers. And usually, well, I guess the example of like caregivers that I saw with that was like sometimes I do like the kids church that they had in the basement, where they'd like have essentially just a different teaching, or they're usually just those older black ladies that'll have like peppermint in their purses. I hang out with them a lot, and they're always fun to talk to.
Those are my
But
favorites.
yeah, they're real sweet. I always like the green striped ones. Those are my favorite. I don't know if there's actually a difference in
Spearmint.
taste. Yeah, but the green striped ones were really good. I like those.
Yeah, that's when I really learned. I'm not gonna lie, growing up in a church and it seems like a really small thing. That's when I really learned the differences in candy. Because you got the spearmint mint, and
Yeah,
then you got the peppermint mints. And I like spearmint flavors, but I don't always like peppermint flavors.
yeah,
But I also hate the peppermints. You know, the ones that dissolve in your mouth, the ones that are big and round. I don't
yeah.
like those. And I learned through church that I do not like those.
That's where I learned that I actually really do like those. Like whenever a restaurant has those, like on your
They
way
do.
out the door, I'd be grabbing like four of them
Yeah.
bitches. I'm not gonna lie. I'd high key take the whole tray if I could. They're so good, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
See, I'm more of a. I like the green mints, and I really fuck with butterscotch, Werther's, and Jolly Ranchers. Not to get into like all of them, but like I do appreciate those old women with the church candies.
Yeah, butterscotch. My grandma put me on to toffee.
Oh yeah,
Toffee's like one of my favorites. I don't get it very often, but
yeah,
when I do, man, it's ooh.
top tier.
Yeah.
Okay, so how would you say gender roles? Do you think they impacted the dynamics you usually lean into like in relationships? Do you find it to be like reflective? I know you said you personally appreciate the more traditional roles. So what does that look like for you in personal relationships?
Yeah. So for me personally, I like don't mind being like the sole breadwinner, or like just being the primary provider, but I don't mean that in the sense that like my partner like isn't allowed to have a job, or like that I expect them to just sit around and just like be at the house all day. Like that's unreasonable. Like they're obviously free to like do whatever, but I don't mind being like the majority of the income, and then like we or like they do like a majority of the housework, but I don't mean to frame it as like I'm not doing anything to help out, because I actually really love like cooking and stuff like that. So like I would of course help out with things like that, just doing just house chores in general. But I for a while I was in a long-term relationship where that was sort of the dynamic we had, where I just was the primary income and they just took care of things around the house, and we both enjoyed what we did. It was very nice, and we still took time to like help each other out too as well. Well, I mostly just helped out around the house, which like not to say that I had an issue with her not working at the time, but I genuinely really love just like spending time with them, and just getting to really just be in your own space and like spending time with your partner and just like living life together. That's what I enjoy.